How's everyone doing? I hope you're not too depressed being at home. I hope tea is with you. So we posted some poll questions on Instagram and just asking people, if you're more interested in the tasting or the brewing. This way I'll be able to kind of tailor the session to have it more of a focus. And then also ask people, if there's a specific topic that you're interested in, because obviously there's so much we can talk about in tea, no matter if it's a technical aspect of the tea, the tea fundamentals, or specifically about the tasting, and that gears towards the category and the specific kind of tea, things like that. So for today, let's focus on pu'er. Now, what I'm going to do is so as you can tell, I'm so not experienced at this. So I'm going to just quickly go through some of the most fundamentals of pu'er. And because I'm severely nearsighted, I cannot see the questions while I'm doing this. So let's hold off the questions until a little bit later. And then this way I'll bring the phone a little bit closer to me and then we can address that. How does that sound? Cool. So, a lot of people said they're interested in pu'er, and then many folks specifically said they're interested in shenpu, which is can be translated as to raw pu'er. I've seen people translate it as into green pu'er. These are all fine. So there are basically two different kinds of pu'er. You have the shenpu and then you have the shoupu. So shoupu, sometimes people translate into ripened pu'er, cooked pu'er. Those are all fine too, because this is a Chinese word that can mean many, many things. One of the great myths that I have here over and over in the Western world about tea is that shoupu is a artificially aged shenpu. And that is very incorrect. The reason this statement is very incorrect is because, for one, is suggesting that if you age a shenpu long enough, it'll become a shoupu. But it would not. So shenpu is basically a green tea that aged to be a red tea. So it stays into the first 5 categories of the tea. Or am I going out of the frame of the camera? So you have the first 5 categories of tea that goes through an enzymatic metabolism. And then versus shoupu is a black tea, and that goes through a microbial metabolism. So without some additional human help, if you take any of the teas from the first 5 category, it would not just automatically become the 6th category. So it would not just make that leap. So that's why it's the first reason that a shoupu is an artificially aged shenpu is not a correct statement. And secondly, it's also because shoupu, when the tea was first invented, it was really trying to meet the demand for certain exportation needs during that specific time of China. And it was not invented to artificially be of another tea anyway. So that's another reason why this is not a correct statement. So as you can see, the shenpu and shoupu are 2 very different teas. So basically, shenpu is a green tea that aged to be a red tea. And actually, in China, academically, shenpu is classified as a sun-dried green tea. So it is not in its own first level category. It's actually in the subcategory. And shoupu also is not a category. Shoupu is just a specific tea, and it belongs to the category of black tea. And remember, this is Chinese black tea, which is different from the Western black tea, which Chinese call the red tea. All right. So as with all teas, the number one most important thing that dictates the value, the price, the demand of the tea is the location. So for pu'er, the location is relatively large, or you can say the terroir of the tea is relatively large. The whole southern Yunnan province, which is a whole province, produce tea. The relatively northern part of this southern half is an area called Jingdong. And these are the area that is dominated by 2 mountains. It's called Liang Shan and Liang Shan. So this is what we usually call either the Liang Shan area, the Liang Shan area, or you can call it the Jingdong area, or the northern area. So during tea season, if you meet somebody in the south and then they're like, oh, I'm going to go north today, and they're probably talking about, in the tea context, they're probably talking about going to Jingdong. And then over here, so not so much south, but definitely to the west, you have another tea region. It's called Lincang. So Lincang is a tea region that is very famous because of this one village. It's called Bingdao, which in Chinese, in English, you can translate to Iceland. You have probably heard of this village before. So Bingdao is the name of the jurisdiction village, and then within the jurisdiction village, there's also a natural village called Bingdao. So this natural village actually is where the most expensive Lincang teas is produced. So Lincang, under Lincang, there's a township called Mengku. And so that's why sometimes this region people either call the Lincang area, the Mengku area, the western area, things like that. So we'll taste the tea from that area as well. And then in the south, you have the most famous area, which is called the Banna area. The whole name is called Xishuang Banna, and the capital of this region is called Jinghong. Jinghong. So, and that's usually where people fly into. So that's why sometimes people either call this area Jinghong or Banna. This is where the famous 15 tea mountains are. So there's a river dividing the 15 tea mountains, and there are 19 mountains to the west of the river, and this is the area people usually call it the Menghai area, named after the township that's the kind of the center of the whole area. But Menghai, just know, like the township itself does not produce tea, but that's where a lot of factory and the pressing facilities are. And then to the east of the Lancang River is the sixth old ancient mountains, and those sometimes people either call it the Mengla area, or this area is actually divided into Yule and then the greater Yiwu area, so people sometimes just call it Yiwu as well. But just remember, Yule is not in Yiwu. But in that sense, Jingmai, which is one of the 15 famous mountains, is also not in Banna, but we still include it in Banna. So this is where you see, in terms of the tea region geography is a little bit different from the jurisdiction divide up, because the jurisdiction divide up sometimes is arbitrary and it changes over time. But the history of the tea is a little bit longer, so and it goes more with like which mountain gives the tea certain attributes in terms of flavor, things like that. So that's why we go with that a little bit more. So you don't. This might be very confusing. So all you need to know is there are three major tea pu'er areas. So you have the Jingdong area, which produces the most economic pu'ers, and you have the Lincang area. The tea is bright, it's sweet, it's very aromatic, but it's also significantly more tannic than the other regions. And then you have the southern area, the Banna area, and it's really cannot justify this, the variety of flavors of tea this area produce to just say it's one area. So at the very least, you want to divide it between the west of the mountain, the east of the mountain. Or the west of the mountain, the tea is very substantial, very robust, kind of powerful. And then the east side of the mountain is the tea is very elegant. It has like this permeating mouthfeel. Usually for a seasoned pour drinker, they'll have very, very strong opinion about either the west of the river or the east of the river. And it's for you to kind of decide what is your favorite. Price and desirability-wise, it's very comparable. All right, so the first one I'm going to brew is a Liang Shan. I don't know if you can see. So this one is being pressed into the 7-gram small pallet. Sometimes people would put 7 of these into a little canister, and then, so as you probably know, the traditional packaging of pu'er is usually put 7 in a stack, and we'll go over that maybe some other time. Now, this is, the plus side of this is definitely is convenience, right? And then what you can do is you just need 7 grams for the gallon. By the way, the standard brewing size for pu'er is 7 grams. This is very, very important. And I know a lot of folks also commenting on wanting to know about brewing. Maybe we can do a session just by brewing itself. But this is a standard size gaiwan. Sometimes people ask, the volume of this gaiwan, and this is about 110 milliliter. But just know that in China, we actually do not call this 110 milliliter gaiwan or 100 milliliter gaiwan to make it simple. We actually call this the 7-gram gaiwan because this is actually how do we call the gaiwan goes with the standard weight of the oolong that goes into the gaiwan. It really all started out with dantong, which is where kind of gaiwan style brewing first became very popular. However, given the cliff tea or yancha become more and more popular, so sometimes people also call it the 8-gram gaiwan, talking about the 8.33 grams of tea that goes into the standard size gaiwan. But for pu'er, the standard brewing size is also 7 grams. It's important because there are certain tea companies in China. You probably heard them in the news if you follow Chinese tea news. They were very popular 2 years ago, doing tons and tons of commercials, and they were actually criticized for not packing their tea in the 7-gram standard brewing size. And so many people come out criticize them for not even packaging the tea into the standard brewing size. They're like, how am I going to have even one single brew of tea out of a small packet? All right, so when you press the tea into the small pallet, it's a little bit tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let it steep for a little longer. And over here, I have a Lincang Dongno. So Dongno is one of the villages in the Mengku area. So remember, Lincang, Mengku, Dongno, so keep getting smaller. Now Dongno is a very big village for the region actually, and so sometimes we just call it the Dongno Dazhai or the Dongno Big Village. So this, what I'm brewing, is a Dongno 2015. Now, as I mentioned earlier, now Dongno is actually, or Lincang area is very bright. The tea is very aromatic. It's also sweeter. However, it's actually more tannic. Right. Oh, I forgot a teapot. So give me a second. Let me go grab a teapot. Here I have Mr. Ganesh. Right. So when you brew tea at home, if you want, you can pour the tea into the cup first, give the rest to the teapot. Because the first brew, you just want to wake up the tea. This. Usually you offer the guests to smell the cup and you smell the lid of the gaiwan. I mean, right now I don't have any guests, so I'm gonna smell the cup myself. And obviously you can do multiple brews if you want, and that's what the fairness cup is for. So this vessel here is for if you have multiple guests. And so every time when we brew from here, it pours about 3 to 4 of this little cup, which has a name called 3-sip cup. And if you have 8 guests, it would not be fair to give like the first group of people the first brew and then the second group of people the second brew. So the fairness cup is exactly for that. It allows you to mix multiple brews of the tea for as long as the size of the vessel allows, and then you can then make sure you're being fair and all the guests get the same tea. It is sweet. It's also very umami. Now, umami is a very important factor for all tea, not just green tea and red tea, which those are even extra important factors, but even for pu'er, which technically is a green tea, it's very important as well. So here, I'm pouring out the Liang Shan 2017. So this is again is just a rinse. I'm giving it to the teapot. So let me go ahead and brew the other one first. I don't want to move the camera, but I noticed that some of the guy ones are actually not in the camera. But anyway, so over here, I have a Banpo Lao Zhai of Zhai. So if when you go to the west side of the Lansang River into the Menghai area, the first tea mountain you're going to encounter is a mountain called Shan. Now Shan is one of the largest tea mountains. It has over 30 villages. So it's I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but over 30 villages is a lot. Because some of the tea mountains, before they got famous, they actually only had one village, and then later they expanded into 2 or 3 villages. Anyway, Shan became very famous because it's actually the home of some really old tea trees. And the 2 verified tea trees of the region, which both are over 850 years old, both come from Shan, and exclusively come from this one village in Shan called Banpo Lao Zhai. Now I want to point out Banpo Lao Zhai is not the highest village of the mountain, because usually when people think about a place or a terroir being highly praised, they usually think about higher elevation. It's not always true. It's a different topic. However, just want to say that Banpo literally means halfway, so it's literally halfway of the mountain. That's where the village is. Now, because of the fame of these very old tea trees, so all the surrounding old tea trees in the area also got really famous. And this is also what put Banpo Lao Zhai, one of the most desired village in the Shan area. And also for about almost a century, when producing activity has gradually decreased due to, let's just say, a whole series of unfortunate events that happened in China. Now, so for a time, there are only a few tea factories still in operation in the region, and so in the 50s all the way to mid-90s, Shan was a main hub that was still producing tea, versus a lot of the other tea mountains actually halted the tea activities, all the way since towards the end of the Qing dynasty actually. Right? So Shan is one of my favorite mountains. Actually, that specifically lot of tea in Banpo Lao Zhai is one of my favorite because it's so, how do I say, it's so, the biodynamic is so amazing. Not only you go there and you see all these older tea trees, the slope is so slippery. I fell like, I don't even know how many times I fell there. And then the tea trees are just so big, and it's a beautiful place. So as I mentioned earlier, the tea from the Menghai area or the west of the tea mountain is bolder. It's a little bit more aggressive in its delivery of the notes. But however, remember, no matter what kind of tea it is, we're always looking for complexity but balance. So complexity without balance is not a good thing. But if you have a thing that's almost like too balanced and there's not enough complexity, it's just like a one blob of flavor that goes to you, that's also not a good thing. It's not sophisticated enough. So, oh, it smells so good. This is a 2016 Banpo Lao Zhai. When I say it smells so good, it means that the tea has a lot of sweetness in its flavor that I can actually smell. And by this point, the tea also has developed a little bit of a fruity note that goes with the floral note as well. However, Shan in general is considered more of the aroma neutral tea mountains. So aroma is not its stronghold. However, body is. It's one of the tea mountains that you just feel it goes downward. There's another tea mountain also known for its body, which is Liang Shan. So usually for tea connoisseurs to be able to distinguish the 2 tea mountains. So if you're given a pu'er and then you're like, oh my god, big body, bold, aggressive, either Shan or Liang Shan, but what is it? If it has a bitter front, we call it, so basically if the bitterness is immediately going through your palate when you have it, that'll be a Liang Shan. And if the bitterness is more of at the end, so it has like a weighty end, it's like when the tea tries to drop into your mouth, it's just like, oh, it just like totally goes downward. and that is a Nong Shan. But honestly, like in China, there's so many very expensive pu'er nowadays, especially the ones from the national forest and everything. We did a few rounds of blind tasting in Beijing, and every time it's always a Nong Shan that actually win out, and it's this. Nong Shan is not cheap by no means. I mean, these are all teas come from very good terroir, very old tea trees. But however, like it. Yeah, it's amazing tea. All right, and then last but not least, I'm going to brew a Yule Longpa. Sorry, I see that you're typing things, but I can't really see it. So we're just gonna hold off the question in just a second. But please do ask a question when that time comes, because I don't know how I can go back and then get everything show again. So over here, I have a Yule Longpa. So Yule Mountain is the first mountain to the east side of the Lanshan River. So if you go from Jinghong, the city, and then you now go to the six ancient mountains to the east side of the Lanshan River, you're gonna hit the Yule Shan. Yule Shan is also called Jinnuo Shan because it's a mountain that belongs to the minority group called Jinnuo. Now, Jinnuo people, Jinnuo is actually one of the smallest minority groups right now. Majority of the most concentrated population is in Jinnuo Mountain, which is just a few thousand. So right now, because Jinnuo Mountain is also becoming a very popular tourist destination because of its unique culture, and then they're kind of famous for having so few people left. So what happens is the bottom half of the Jinnuo Mountain is actually called Jinnuo Mountain, and once you pass a certain limit, you start to the mountain become the Yule Mountain, which is more famous for the tea. This comes from the most sought after village of Yule Mountain, which is called Longpa. Now, Longpa is also called Yanuo, just so you know. So I want to show you how you want to cut this packet. It's not super important. It has a small benefit, which I'll show you in a second. But it is kind of important if you want to show off your tea snobbishness. Yeah, whatever that's called. The reason being, just kind of like how a sommelier will hold a wine bottle a certain way. Does it matter if you hold it that way or the other way? Does that matter? Impact the taste of the wine? Probably not. So how you cut the packet probably doesn't matter either, but people do judge you on it. So if you cut it a certain way, it's almost like a signal. It's like, you know what you're doing. You're one of us. And if you don't do it that way, people kind of feel like you're like missing something. So that's probably the greater benefit of cutting it this way. You want to go around. And you can either cut it off or you can have it linger a little bit if you can. It'll help you to have one piece of trash instead of two. And as you can see, now if you open it up, you have a little bit of opening like this to channel the tea. So this Yule Longpa is actually loose, it's not pressed. So Yule Shan, the Longpa village actually, there are two lots of tea that belongs to the village. One lot is called Ahei, the other lot is called Lede. People generally consider Lede a little bit more desired than Ahei. The raw tea leaf sells for a slightly higher price. So this one is from Lede. And sometimes it's a mix, So our website, if it didn't specify, it's a mix. And then if it's specified, then it's either Ahei or Lede. Is this guy one in there? Okay. Let me bring the guy one in. By the way, it definitely feels weird to brew tea in front of a camera, or to, like brew tea. I feel like I'm brewing tea for camera, which is weird. But if you're enjoying this, let me know. Or if you feel like this could be done some other way that's better, let me know as well. So immediately, I noticed a lot of tenderness in the sweetness in the aroma. So Yunnan is a mountain that is known for its sweetness. It actually is the sweetest to the east side of the Lanshan River. If you're wondering, the sweetest mountain to the west of the Lanshan River is Damong. And as I mentioned earlier, the tea that's to the east side of the Lanshan River is very elegant. I mean, if you're looking for the silky mouthfeel, like the tender sweetness, the umami-ness, the lingering, almost airy floral notes, the east of the Lanshan River is definitely where you're going for. Yeah, you notice that when the tea goes into your mouth, immediately the mouthfeel will become almost like sideways, like it permeates. And this is a very unique trait of tea from the east side of the Lanshan River. All right, so let me just recap really quick, and then we can do some questions because I have no idea what the feedback is. So over here we have northern tea region, the Liang Shan area. Liang Shan tea is mellow. It's good value if you can get older tea trees. It has the most of the ancient, it has the least ancient tea tree and the most of the plantation teas. So you got to be careful and then know, what you're actually paying for. The tea is pretty mellow, but it's very gentle, very easy to drink. This is a perfect starter brewer. Depends on the years. Some of the years they actually depends on the maturity of the brewer. Some of them actually has a little bit like a juicy raisin. It's almost like a rehydrated raisin note. It's not a grape. It's like the sweetness of raisins, especially white raisins, not the red raisins. And the second tea over here is a Lincang Dongnong. So Lincang is the western tea region. Dongnong is one of the villages in the under the county of Mengku. Now, this is a pu'er that is bright, it's aromatic, but it's also slightly more tannic. It's sweeter as well. This one is from 2015. Right now it has like a dry apricot kind of note to it. Actually, a lot of pu'er, once it moves into the fruitier area, it starts to have some kind of dry fruit note. But this one, the dry apricot note is a little bit more accentuated. The third one we have here is what is it called? The Nong Shan, Zhai. So this is a pu'er that if you want the perfect balance of sustained, like a substantial body and the powerfulness, a little bit umami-ness, a little bit floralness, but however, it's not going to be, overly aggressive, and it's very well balanced, and it doesn't have a little bit bitter end, and this is the Nong Shan. And over here we have the we have the Yulong Longpa. So Yulong Longpa is a sweeter pu'er. It's very elegant in the mouthfeel, and so if you also looking for like an elegant pu'er, but you want to spend a little bit more, then Yulong Longpa is something that you're looking for. All right, so let me go and bring the camera a little closer to my face so I can see the questions and stuff. Hi. Does anyone have any questions? I saw that there were, there's a question button. Let me see that. Oh, yes. So how does the vintage affect the tea? Now, so tea, when I wanted to kind of actually imagine a tree. So when tea first started out, and when it's on its on its tea leaves, it's very bitter. It's like a bitter green. It's almost like a salad, if you will, but bitter. And green tea retains most of the tea's original taste. It's a little bit nutty, a little savory. So a younger pour tastes exactly like that. It has some of the floral notes, but not like super floral. Sorry, did my face scare people too close? And then, so as the tea age, it'll first start to hit like a floral kind of area, but the floralness is like a little bit fresh. It's almost like a grassy floralness. It's like the difference between jasmine and rose and chamomile. They're very different kind of floral notes. And then the tea will then age to become more of like the nectar of the flower. So still be a little floral, but it has more sweetness to it. And then it'll become like a fruity note, and then the dry fruit, and eventually very honey-like. So the reason I wanted you to picture a tree is because it almost follows like this plant life cycle, where you first have thank you. When you first have a young shoot, and then that gives you a flower. So the tea also starts to taste like a flower, and then you get a fruit, and then the fruit like rottens or dries, and then so that's kind of like how you will help you to kind of remember the transition of the flavor of the tea that goes from the flavor of pu'er specifically as they age, how it goes from more like a green tea, kind of grassy, savory, nutty, to slowly being more floral, and then like a sweet floral, and then fruity, dry fruit, ripened fruit kind of thing, or sorry, ripened fruit, dry fruit. Yeah. Any more questions? I saw there were like paragraph of things, but I don't know what the all right. But if you have questions, please let me know, I guess. Yeah, I mean, if you have a larger vessel, so remember, tea brewing is about the management of the temperature, the water to tea ratio, and then the time. So if you changed one, you cannot expect the result to be the same if you do not change the other two. So however, if you want to have the change the flavor of the tea, then these three tools are also at your fingertip to help you. So if you want to have the tea taste a little bit less, you can either use lower temperature, or you can increase the water to tea ratio, or you can decrease the time. So these three are just really, the three factors that you had to juggle when you consider brewing tea. So the best way to store pu'er. Now, so for all teas, you want to avoid moisture, and you want to avoid drastic temperature change. But you still do not want to. So pu'er, if you don't have to make it airtight, because it's not afraid to breathe, and a little bit oxidation can help it to age as well. However, if you expose the tea to air too much, it can actually dry out, and this is actually what we call a dry out taste. It'll make a spring harvest tea to taste more like a fall harvest, actually. So you do not want to do that either. But when in doubt, airtight container is always good. So at home, you do not want to you do not want to store tea in the kitchen, right? So near cooking where there are a lot of flavor going on, you do not want that. So basically place with clean air and it's dry. You can wrap the tea in paper, rice paper preferred. In China, they sell those bamboo buckets. We actually have a few here too. That's how we store tea, and I've seen people put it in like a paper envelope, but that can help as well. But make sure it's away from moisture. That's very, very important. If you're in like the New York area, actually New York is a very good place to store tea. It's relatively dry and it's colder. So someplace with AC. So if you also in New York where your whole apartment will smell like something if you cook, maybe store it in the office or something. Yeah. And somebody asked, how does the flavor change, pour change from day to day? So just keep in mind, sometimes when you taste the tea being different, there's definitely the tea itself that has changed, but also at the same time, how we perceive taste can also change. The moisture in the air can actually drastically alter how we perceive taste. And also, keep in mind the pour does not age linear. So this is very important. I'm going to gesture. It does not age like this. It does not just get better and better. It actually ages like this. Because remember, this is still the tea going through the enzymatic metabolism, just like how we make the tea go through when we make the first 5 categories of teas. It's just now at a snail speed. So what happens is you're going to hit a high and you're going to hit a low. You're going to hit a high and you're going to hit a low. So sometimes when you brew the same pu'er, it'll become very aromatic and feels very clean, like smooth mouthfeel. That's just a good day to drink that pu'er, and then that's when we're hitting a high on the curve. However, if you let the time pass, sometimes the tea will become like even muddier or become unclear. Even visually, sometimes if you look at a pressed tea cake, it'll become a little bit less glossy and almost looks musky, and that's just not a good day to drink that tea. But give it time, it should come back up again. But also keep in mind that, tea aging, in China, we don't have a tradition to age tea. This is something that's very, very new. So you have, on one hand, people just insist that you age tea, and I highly suspicious of the motives, because sometimes people even make up stories in history to cover that. And on the other side, actually, largely represented by a lot of scholars in China, they're highly against this whole tea aging idea, mostly because we don't have a tradition of doing so. But the question I want to ask is, can tea be aged? Right? It doesn't matter if we had a tradition or not, can tea be aged? And from what I have seen, certain tea without the enzymes being completely destroyed in tea, this is very important. So only certain kinds of teas. Now, the flavor does change to maintain its complexity as time go by. So it does not become homogenized as time go by. And this to me is aging. Now, but on the other hand, if we now do start aging tea, you do not want to just age any tea. Sometimes people will be like, oh, don't drink a young pu'er. I would say if the tea is not drinkable when you first buy it, it's probably not worth aging either. It's like if you buy a bottle of like a yellowtail and you keep it for 20 years, it does not become a better yellowtail now. So, however, there's certain wine that you actually purchase and age. So, always start with good tea, and that's what makes it aging. And then looking at how the flavor change over time become very interesting. At the end of the day, we're not really looking for age the pu'er, because we kind of already know what it tastes like. We're looking for the changes along the way, right? During tea making, there's so many things that happen really fast. We might have missed the many heights during this curve, during the flavor change of the tea. However, pu'er, because it goes at a snail speed for this process, it really allows us to take a closer look of how the flavor developed during tea's enzymatic metabolism. Oh, so the temperature, you want to use boiling. So pu'er is very hearty tea. And also when in doubt, you always want to use hotter temperature. But there is also this brewing principle. So you want to always use hotter water for better tea to bring out complexity. And you want to use colder water to brew more inferior tea to dilute the flaws. So that's kind of your choice as well. But hotter water, if you brew good tea, use hotter water. Do not use colder water to do the tea justice. And then, because you can always have the option to pour the tea out faster. But if you use colder water, you're kind of just stuck. Okay, so if you brew the tea at night, can you store the tea in the morning? Can you continue to brew the tea in the morning? To be safe, probably not. So in Chinese culture, there's always this advice telling people to not drink overnight tea. Obviously, it's not overnight that's the problem. It's just tea is perishable. And sometimes if you accidentally consume tea that's already gone bad, that, it can be damaging to your health. So, however, I totally understand. I have, in my life many times, started a tea, especially a tea I really, really like, and then I wasn't able to finish it. So what I did was I put it in the fridge. If you live in a very cold area, maybe also, but if you're like, in the warmer area, then the tea does go bad. So it's a safety issue really. And the tea, once the moisture hit the tea will also start to oxidize pretty rapidly. So the flavor will also change. So whenever you can, the best practice is always to just drink the tea in one session. But sometimes when such a situation does not allow that, then, it's comparison to dumping a batch of tea you really, really like, so maybe keep it in the fridge or something. So if a tea cake was stored for a long time in a dry area and it's asleep, is it possible to start the fermentation again? Yeah, of course. I mean, you don't have to, so even if it's in a very dry place, it'll just basically age at a slower rate. However, if the tea kind of completely dry out, then that'll be a different story. Because sometimes it does happen when people didn't wrap the tea very well and there's air circulation going on. Then the tea will start to develop a dry taste. So that taste is really difficult to get rid of. However, if you just store the tea at a very dry and cold area where the tea didn't really get a chance to kind of ferment for as much as you want to, and then now you transfer it to a warmer and a slightly more humid area, and it'll just keep going. Are any regions known for longer lasting huigan than others? I think the lasting sweetness is one of my favorite aspects of drinking pu'er. Yes, I mean, so for all good tea, there should be a longer huigan. However, so huigan, I want to explain. So in Chinese, the word gan is different from tian in terms of the sweetness we're trying to describe. So tian is more of like a sugar kind of sweetness, versus gan is kind of like it's almost like a more abstract version of the sweetness. And huigan means that it's a gan taste, so a sweetness that's already abstract, that's not directly hitting your palate. But once your palate, after you swallow the tea, the sweetness starts to come up. And a lot of it is either due to very well distributed catechin, so the tannins in the tea, or it's because of the amino acid in the tea. So actually, in tea tasting, a very important ratio we're looking at is what we call 就是酚胺比, and that's basically the ratio between catechin and theanine. So between catechin and amino acid. So it's this ratio that gives you that. And so there's not really a specific region known for that. Is really a combination of location, the variety, and the processing. And of course for pu'er, because of the age of the tea tree is so important, so the age of the tea tree as well. But in general, sometimes to be honest, if you have a very, very tannic tea, that huigan will also be stronger, but we do not consider it sophisticated because, again, it's out of balance. The complexity has to have controls around it. So, yeah, so if you're only looking for huigan, looking for a very tannic oolong, a very tannic pu'er, and then just let it sit, the huigan might come a little bit later, and then it'll be longer lasting. I'm very glad you're pointing that out, Bob. Yes, yellowtail sushi does not age very well either. See, you learn everything here. Oh, my favorite portion. So I really like their these two mountains. One is called Gedeng. So Gedeng is a tea mountain to the east side of the Lanshan River. Gedeng is just so elegant. I mean, I was like, Gedeng is like a perfect gentleman for in tea sense. It's not too aggressive. It's not too mild, and it's not too sweet. It's not too not sweet. It's not too abstract. Not too actual. It's just so perfectly balanced. It's so elegant. It's perfect. And I've always loved Gedeng. And unfortunately, Gedeng actually saw the highest price hike in 2018. The price went three-fold in that 1 year for Gedeng. So yeah, that's why I kind of don't want to mention it, because our Gedeng is still a very good price. But anyway, I also really like a mountain to the east side of Lanshan River called Mannuo. Now, Mannuo is a very strange tea. Mannuo is a tea that when you first drink it, the first year when it's produced, it's like, it's also one of those more aroma neutral teas. And then the second year and the third year, the body just becomes so amazing. It's almost like, where did you get all this body from? Because I know you since you were born. But anyway, it's a pretty unique tea. It's very, very umami, very savory as well. Mannuo became very popular in 2015. Yeah. Oh, questions. I saw the questions. Can we see the leaves of the 4 teas you just brewed? Yes, you can. Let me see how... Can I turn the camera around? Oh, I can. Wait. Oh, there you go. So remember, I actually only did 1 brew for all of them, and I'm probably going to get very tea drunk later. So this first one is the it's the Liang Shan 2017. This is the one that's in the small cake. Yeah, as you can see, as the tea oxidized, now the liqueur has a deeper color. And over here, we have a Dongno 2015. And it's was in a smaller cake, so after you chip it, it's a little bit busier. And this is the liqueur. Over here, we have the Liang Shan 2016. This is the Banpo Lao Zhai one, the tea. And over here, we have Yu Le Long Pa. By the way, on our website, there are actually professionally taken pictures that's much more clear than this. And also the tea hasn't really fully opened up yet because I only did 1 brew per tea. Sorry. Another video. Yes, we definitely want to do another video, and just so... you can probably tell, we're not professional at this, and I am not, and especially now it's just me in an empty tea house without any professional help. So if you have any specific topics you would like us to go over, please let me know. The more specific the question, of course, the more specific we can go into, but it's really like how like anything that you're curious about, and it can be anything that's related to tea. And if or something about Chinese and Chinese culture as well. I mean, I love your I love like I'm very proud to be Chinese, and I love culture, history, things like that. But tea, is going to be more of my expertise, but anything else, if you're curious, I'll try my best to answer as well. If you are using a tea that cannot be steeped in boiling water and let it cool or stop. Sorry, there was a question that was really long. I can't finish reading the question. Only the beginning of the question says, if you are using a tea that cannot be steeped in boiling water, it's better to boil water and let it cool, or stop the water before. It really depends on the water. So in China, because a lot of people drink what we call the like back in the days, people do not drink oh my god, now I have this thing I can't get rid of. So because we don't we can't drink the water directly come from the water source, so it's definitely recommended that you boil the water. But if you don't think there'll be an issue, then you don't have to boil the water. And in general, we do not recommend the water with too much minerals either. So you want a certain amount of mineral to enhance the taste. However, I've had water that's just like so heavy in I don't even know what it is. I'm going to guess it's calcium. It really have deposit in the vessel, and sometimes certain minerals can even combine with the compounds in tea, and it actually clog the filter. So in those cases, if you actually boil the water, it'll make that situation worse. So it really depends. But if safety is not an issue, the high minerality in the water is not an issue either, then feel free to really use any. So do you have to season your Yixing teapot? So if you so in Chinese we actually have a terminology for it called kaihu, right? So you open the teapot. If you definitely get a kickstart to open the teapot, there's certain risk to it. So when you open the teapot, what you want to do is you actually want to first stuff the teapot with tofu, and then boil the teapot in the very, very, very clean pot. So you put the tofu in the teapot, and then you put the whole thing in another pot to boil it. You want to do this for like minimum an hour, and you take it out, let it completely cool down. You might want to wait for a few hours. So you really should spend a whole day doing this. And then you stuff the teapot again with sugar cane. And then you repeat this process again. Take the sugar cane out, and then the tea that you want to use it to also boil the teapot with, and then take it out. So this will help you to prep the teapot. It'll give it a kickstart. The risk is keep boiling the teapot, and then sometimes it causes rattling into another pot. You can actually damage the teapot. So that's the risk of it. And you really want to assess if this risk can make up for the end result you want for your teapot. If not, you can just, at the beginning brew a lot using that teapot. It'll help as well. So it's really just, how fast you want to reach a certain status with the teapot kind of question. What kind of tea do they drink in Dream of the Red Chamber? Actually, the most famous tea in the Dream of Red Chamber is a tea called Lao Junmei. But we don't know what that tea is. Right now, there are over 2 dozens of tea called Lao Junmei in China that falls into all categories, actually. So we don't know exactly what it is. Most likely, given the setup, it was the Ming Dynasty. It was probably a green tea, but we do not know if it's referring to a specific varietal of the tea or is referring to the tea that's processed into a very specific style. And very unfairly, in Dream of Red Chamber, they also made a tea they also dissed on the tea basically, and it's the Luan tea. So Luan is where the gua pian, often mistranslated to melon seed, but it's really sunflower seed, that green tea, and then also Huoshan Huangya, the yellow tea. So both those teas come from the Luan area. Luan is what in China we call the 1,000-year-old tea region. It's very old, even though the current styles of tea that's produced in the region are all kind of newer. So in the dream around chamber, the older lady of the household specifically said, "I do not want to drink Luan tea. Do not serve me Luan tea." So maybe that's the maybe so that they say they dissed on that, but we don't know why she didn't want to drink it. They didn't go into detail of it, but at least we know it was a tea that's commonly shared among the aristocrats as in China at the time. That's why she had to specifically say, "I don't want it." Oh yeah, brewing a lot instead of boiling it, maybe it's safer, I would say. Yeah, it's just like, how do you want to? Yeah, like after you season it, there's like the first day you're like, "Oh my god, my teapot is like this." You become so happy with it, but it is a risk of it. Yeah. All right. So if there are no more questions, and yeah, I just want to say hi to some of our regulars and sippers. I see you here, and yeah, of course, and my colleagues at Tea Drunk. Thank you so much for your support. Everyone, please stay safe. And we'll post maybe some of them, maybe all of it on our Instagram story. But let us know on what the next session you want to know about, and then I'll talk about those next. Yeah. Thank you.